I'll tell you how I ended up at war with the HOA during the worst ice storm Colorado Springs had ever seen, and how a space heater, a power outage, and one power-mad woman named Brenda Matthews managed to push a quiet neighborhood to the breaking point. It all started before dawn February 14th, 2026. I woke up shivering, real bone-deep cold. No lights, no humming furnace, just blackness except for the weak gray light sneaking in through the frostbitten window panes. The power was out, and not just my house, half the city, including our little Pinewood Ridge subdivision, had gone dark. You ever get that sinking feeling right in your gut when you know the day's about to go off the rails before you've even made coffee? That was me. But here's what Brenda didn't know as she stomped up and down the icy sidewalks, clipboard in hand. Her blonde hair sprayed stiff enough to survive a tornado. I own Rocky Mountain Power Solutions. That's right. The company currently out there risking life and limb to string wires through ice-laden pines trying to get the lights back on. I'm Peter Donovan. I built that company from nothing, starting as a lineman climbing poles in the middle of snow squalls 20 years ago until I managed to buy out a struggling utility and turn it into something solid. Not that my neighbors ever guessed. I kept a low profile. Modest truck average house. I liked the mountains, not attention. That storm. It hit hard 2 a.m., thick ice piling up on every line and limb. By 3, I was on the phone with David, my operations manager, calling in help from Wyoming and New Mexico, waking up mutual aid contacts, prepping crews to work round the clock. But sitting in my kitchen at 7, bundled in every layer I owned, the temperature inside had already dropped to 52 degrees. I fished out an industrial space heater from my garage, one of those monsters you get through work, and hooked it up to my truck's inverter with a long orange extension cord. Was it strictly to code? No. Was it safe? Absolutely. But it sure as hell beat freezing. Then came the knock. Sharp and titled like someone who's never been told no in her life. I didn't even have to check, I knew it was Brenda. Standing there, designer coat zipped up to her neck, 2 loyal sidekicks shivering behind her, she cut straight to the chase. I'm conducting wellness checks, and I couldn't help but notice you have an unauthorized heating device running from your vehicle. I sipped my coffee, forced to smile. Morning, Brenda. Yeah, I've got a space heater keeping my pipes from bursting. She whipped out her tablet, always with the tablet. That's a violation, Peter. Section 12, paragraph 4. No high wattage heating devices without prior HOA approval. And running cords through a doorway. That's a tripping hazard. Insurance risk. I'll need you to surrender the heater. I just stared. You want to take my only heat source during an outage when it's below freezing? She didn't even blink. For community safety, everyone's making sacrifices. Now, I've met my share of bullies, some hiding behind badges, some hiding behind clipboards. But the particular brand of self-importance you find in certain HOA presidents, that's a whole other beast. Brenda, I said that's the dumbest thing I've heard today, and I've been dealing with a citywide crisis since 3 this morning. You're not taking my heater. She got real close. Well, as close as someone 5'5" can get, and said, if you refuse, I have authority to enter your property and remove violations myself. That got a laugh out of me, a short, not very nice one. You're going to break into my house during a disaster and take my stuff. That's burglary, Brenda. Her backup. Susan piped up. It's enforcement, not stealing. I pulled out my phone. Let's ask the sheriff. Would you rather they charge you with trespassing or burglary? Her face went from red to purple, but she backed down, stormed off, muttering threats about fines and liens and legal action. As she left, I saw her take my neighbor Tom's propane heater right off his porch. Tom's in his 70s, lives alone, doesn't say much. That image, him cold and defeated in the doorway, lit a fuse inside me. The hours crawled by. My team was fighting the storm tooth and nail. I spent the morning juggling maps, calls, and coffee tracking restoration progress and sending crews to hospitals and water treatment plants first. I got a call around noon from a number I didn't know, a Margaret Chen State Public Utilities Commission. She said, we've received a formal complaint about Rocky Mountain Power Solutions emergency response. Negligence, inadequate prep for weather events. Guess who filed it? Brenda Matthews. My own HOA president in the middle of a blackout trying to sick the regulators on me. And as my house dropped to 48 degrees and I wrapped myself in more layers, Brenda came back this time with a rent-a-cop in tow, some guy named Carl. One more chance, she said, surrender the heater, or Carl here will remove it as outlined in our procedures. I looked at Carl. Big guy, clearly not thrilled. Carl, If you step foot in my home and take my property, you're going to jail. HOA rules don't override Colorado law. He looked at Brenda, then at me, and backed down, mumbling an apology as he hustled back to his truck. Brenda's eyes burned holes through me. This isn't over, Peter. This community has standards, and you'll respect them. She left, but I just knew she wasn't letting go. That night, I barely slept fielding calls from my exhausted crews. The temperature in my house hit 43 degrees by morning. I heard scratching at the garage door, checked the security cam. Brenda and Linda, her other sidekick, breaking in with a tool. I caught them in the act, yelling, "What do you think you're doing?" Brenda tried to play it off as enforcing the rules. I called 911. Linda panicked and dragged Brenda out. The whole thing was caught on camera faces, clear as day. Deputy Morrison arrived soon after. Watched the footage, shook his head. "You want to press charges?" I thought about Tom, about all the times Brenda had bullied the people who never fought back. "Yeah, I do." Brenda and Linda were both charged. I was hoping that'd put an end to it. No such luck. The next day, a process server dropped a cease and desist letter at my door, $5,000 fine for interfering with HOA operations, threats of foreclosure. My attorney laughed when I told him, "They've got nothing, Peter. Just keep documenting everything." On the third night, Brenda served me notice emergency HOA meeting mandatory. I walked into that clubhouse packed with cold, frustrated neighbors. Brenda, still acting like queen of the neighborhood, rattled off my offenses: unauthorized heater harassment, criminal complaints. "We propose $15,000 in fines and foreclosure proceedings if you don't comply." She called for a vote. I stood up. I told the room who I was, what I did for a living, what the company had done in the storm, how I'd been freezing right alongside everyone else, just trying to keep my pipes and my job from bursting. I told them Brenda had tried to take away heaters from people who needed them, broken into my garage, harassed and bullied, gone so far she'd landed herself criminal charges. The room was dead silent, everyone listening. When Brenda moved to vote, only she and Linda raised their hands. The other board members sat on their hands looking at the floor. Motion failed 3-2. Then Frank, the only sensible board member, said, "I move to suspend Brenda as president pending investigation." 3 hands went up. Brenda's face cycled from red to purple. She couldn't believe it. I could almost hear the pressure leaving the room. Justice didn't stop there. Over the following weeks, Brenda filed lawsuits against me against the HOA. Her criminal trial moved forward. The video, the testimony, it all stacked up against her. The judge didn't buy the HOA authority argument for a second. Probable cause trial scheduled. Linda took a plea deal, probation, and community service, plus a full apology. By the time it was all over, Brenda had been found guilty criminal trespass and attempted theft. She got 90 days in county jail, probation, community service, and had to pay restitution. She lost the presidency, lost her reputation, lost her marriage. I donated the money from the civil settlement to help neighbors pay their utility bills. You might wonder if I felt triumphant. Maybe a little. Mostly I felt relieved for Tom, for the folks who'd been too afraid to push back. The HOA rewrote its rules, limited board authority, made sure emergencies meant common sense came first. Patricia, a level-headed neighbor, took over as president, and things actually improved. After everything, lawsuits, headlines, storm damage, I learned a few things. First, bullies rely on people's silence. Stand up, document everything. Don't let anyone tell you their rules outweigh your rights or the law. Second, even decent people can get swept up in bad leadership. Sometimes they just need someone to say, "Enough." Third, community isn't about control, it's about looking out for each other, especially when things get tough. As the year wore on, Pinewood Ridge became a better place. Less fear, more neighborly, even during disagreements. The space heater stayed in my garage more as a trophy than a tool. Every time a cold snap threatened, I knew I'd never let anyone bully me or my neighbors out of what was right again. And here's where I leave you if you've stuck with me this long. I want to know, if your HOA president tried to confiscate your space heater during a blizzard, would you fight back, or would you go along to keep the peace? Have you ever stood up to someone in power who was out of line? Tell me your story, because trust me, this country runs on the courage of people who finally say, "No more." At the end of the day, your home should be your refuge. Sometimes you have to fight to keep it that way. And sometimes the storm you survive isn't the one outside, but the one trying to get in through your own front door.